Hello again and welcome to DanWhiteBooks, the book review channel where we dive into the worlds of literature, both for those who do read and those who don't. Today I'll be reviewing a book that is often described as quite the tearjerker. But does it hold up, and did it bring a tear to my own eye? Well, let's find out. Welcome again to DanWhiteBooks, and today I'll be reviewing Daniel Keyes' Flowers for Algernon. Flowers for Algernon was another one of those books I'd seen mentioned across multiple online communities, both on Reddit and on Facebook. The more I saw it, the more it grabbed my attention, and before long I'd gone out and bought a copy. People may know I'm quite the fan of science fiction. That is mostly the kind that takes place on Earth. This book would fall under the category of science fiction, however it only touches briefly upon it, a lot like Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, which I'm sure you're familiar with. If not the book, then certainly the film. I wouldn't go expecting this to be something akin to Star Trek or Star Wars. This book simply hints at areas in science fiction or in science that don't sound all that implausible, particularly in modern times. So let's get into this story, and I'd like to add this will contain minimal spoilers, although most of what I discuss here can be found on the back of the book. So let's dive in. Flowers for Algernon is written as a first-person account through the eyes of its central character, Charlie Gordon. Charlie has been chosen to take part in a new experiment to enhance his intelligence and is told to keep a personal log throughout his experience. This personal log is what you will be reading from start to finish. Charlie is handicapped and has an impaired IQ, this totaling a low score of only 68. When you first begin reading this book and the entries written by Charlie from the initial pages, you are certainly made aware of the fact that Charlie does have, as said, a lower IQ. Spellings are incorrect, punctuation is lacking, but nonetheless the strength in the writing still shines through. You learn of Charlie's lack of understanding for the events around him and empathise with the plights and struggles he faces in daily life. Charlie's been selected above similar people for his desire to change, both learning basic writing and reading skills out of sheer interest in the years preceding, and all in the pursuit to become like everyone else. He wants to become intelligent but has no clue how to go about it, no concept that his IQ will not improve simply by learning new things. However, Charlie presses on despite his difficulties. There is a certain endearing innocence about Charlie that makes him highly likeable. Despite his shortcomings, you learn he is a very caring individual whose actions are often misinterpreted as being strange or in some cases potentially harmful. However, this is far from the true mark of his character. Algernon is a mouse who came before Charlie and whose IQ has risen greatly due to the results of the operation Charlie is soon to undergo. The successful results on Algernon convinced the lead scientist that this procedure is now relatively safe for human testing. Charlie is the first man selected to undergo this radical surgery, but as the back of this book hints, although this experiment is at first successful on both participants, it later becomes clear that the mental health of the mouse Algernon is slowly beginning to decline, and with that our central character soon realises his own will follow suit. As we continue to read the book, we see both the highs and the lows of this change. So that is the basic premise of this book. Quite an interesting plot for sure, but what makes this book so real is the progress reports you read throughout. At first I felt this may ruin the flow of the book. Who would want to read progressive reports one after the other? But slowly Charlie begins to change, and these reports become more journalistic entries about a man who's deeply discovering himself, his identity, and what he means to the world. And that there is where the real magic starts to happen. We see a man develop from a person with no understanding to someone struggling deeply with his own understanding, not of scientific literature or academic pursuits, but instead the very things we all have and all struggle with so immensely throughout our lives. The thoughts that don't make rational sense but often compel us to act in certain ways regardless. Our very emotions. As Charlie develops, you read his detailed entries about how he feels, and more importantly, you relive memories of his past that had long since been forgotten. The upset comes in realising the true meaning of the events that he was once so ignorant of. Your discovery is as much as Charlie's own, as he details these events for the first time and begins to understand them on the basic level the reader will no doubt be able to tell. To put simply, Charlie did not have an easy time growing up. Certain tales are rather tragic, and the manipulation of a boy who is only trying to fit in and appear caring is often quite heartbreaking. The book was first released in 1966, although started as a short story in 1955. I must say it ages very well. Had I not looked at the publication date, I would never have even suspected it to have been released so many years ago. It has certainly become an enduring work, and at the pace it's going, it's pretty much a classic at this point. It's going to be considered a classic. It hides around in all these online communities, and a lot of people have read it. There is actually controversy regarding this book. As Charlie grows smarter, he soon becomes more aware of other human traits like a desire, passion, lust, and love. I personally see no controversy in this book and think the comments are grossly exaggerated and unjustified, but then again, a book that has become so popular will no doubt draw its critics, and that there is a great segue to what I don't like about this book. And point one is the length. With so much going on in this book and so much development of the central character, I felt let down that it just wasn't longer. I remember reading it and noticing how quickly the pages were thinning, and that was a sad thought because I knew there could have been so much more to write about. Maybe this stems from the fact that this work started as a short story, and so perhaps the author felt hard-pressed to further adapt and milk more of what was once a minor tale, but to me it feels a little off. Of course, I could turn that critique on its head. It's certainly apparent I liked this work and did not want it to end, but having looked at other reviews, I would not describe it as a masterpiece. Characters are thin, there aren't all that many, and again, that may be attributed to the book's length. The best character is the central one, Charlie Gordon, who is crafted in a beautiful manner and whose thoughts and ideas are heartwarming and touching. The book is highly readable. You could digest it in mere days, although I would advise against doing this. There is a lot to be learned within these pages, and how intellect and academia are not the be-all and end-all of life, and how an individual, despite remarkable gifts, can still struggle immensely in the real world. Well, this is certainly a bit of a change. Did I cry? What a section. Well, it did bring a tear to my eye. There's certainly something tragic about seeing a character change, and from a person who feels so real and not fabricated. I do feel the best fictional books are the one that really make you believe you're reading an account of a real event, and this book certainly does that very well. I would score this book an 86 out of 100 and would certainly recommend it to those who'd like to go on a reflective journey, although a saddening adventure with a man who's discovering himself so late in life and in such a heartfelt manner. But be warned, it may certainly bring a tear to your eye, for flowers do wither. My friends, thank you again for watching. To go off script with this book, I did enjoy it, but I'd heard so much praise about it. Sometimes hearing so much praise about a book can actually be its undoing, because you go in expecting, when you see someone describe a book as a masterpiece, you're going to go in there and expect it to be this amazing work. And this is certainly a very, very good book. There's no doubt about that. But it's getting an 86 because it's not up there in the 90s. I felt again that the characters could have been a bit more, but the central character is done so well, and it's very sad to hear of his journey when he was younger and now when he's older. It's a beautiful contrast between him reliving memories of his past that he did not understand, to then coming to the future, both trying to struggle with who he is at that point and who he was before. If you enjoyed this book review, please leave a comment, please subscribe, and I thank you of course for watching. I hope I've given a little bit of an insight into this book without spoiling it, because I wouldn't want to do that. I'd want you to read it and take it in for yourself. It's quite a profound book in itself, and it has a little hint of science fiction, so that's always a great thing. Again, I will see you again here soon. I'm reviewing a book every 2 to 3 weeks now. I've already read the next book, which will be Slaughterhouse 5. I'll be reviewing that and giving a little bit of a brief introduction into it. So until then, I will see you soon. Bye bye.